All right, what's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining us for another Webinar Wednesday event. I'm Logan Arliss here. I'm joined with Andre, who is a first officer with Envoy, and as well as a pilot recruiter. So thank you for joining us, Andre. We're excited to learn what Envoy has to offer their pilot groups.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here, and hopefully we can make these events happen in person at some point. But this is a good time. Good start to it, right?
Absolutely. Well, we're happy to have you. Excited to learn about Envoy. So the objective today, we're going to get a good company overview of what Envoy Air looks like, how they came to be. We'll get a little industry outlook as to where Envoy stands currently and the projections that they plan for the future. We'll get to talk about their hiring and training process, as well as their cadet program that they offer and the benefits of joining their cadet program. So we are happy to be Envoy's Chicagoland Cadet School here at Illinois Aviation Academy and to provide a clear path for our students and our instructors to Envoy, which then feeds into American Airlines. So a brief look at Envoy. Envoy has approximately 18,000 employees. They operate more than 185 aircraft on 1,000 daily flights to over 150 destinations. They have three primary hubs based right here at our back door, Chicago O'Hare, as well as Dallas and Miami as well. So Andre, if you could give us a history of Envoy Air and how it came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So Envoy started as American Eagle originally, and now we fly under the American Eagle brand. Envoy started in 1984 under that brand, and then in 2014 it switched over to Envoy Air. Back in the day, we flew the Saab, the ATR, and the Embraer 120 under the Eagle brand. And then through the years, we started to park the turboprops and get some jets on. So we started with the 145 and then transitioned into the 175. Currently, we have only 145 and 175 aircraft with a growing fleet of the 175 and a shrinking fleet of the 145. We used to operate 140s as well as 145s, and now we only operate 140s. The 175, we have about 70 of them, and that fleet's growing with 170s. In addition to that, we're getting 6 new 170s from British Airways. They actually just crossed the pond last week, I believe. So they're in the States now, and we're getting our maintenance certificate on that. And once we're done with that, they're going to start into circulation. The biggest benefit of the 170 is that we have, sorry about that. There we go. We have the, within the scope clause of American Airlines, the 170 fits into what the 145 used to fit into with only 64 seats. Whereas the 175 fits into a larger category. So it helps out in the scope clause. We can operate more of them. Let me
Absolutely. So that was, were you able to operate the 175?
Yeah, so that's kind of the, say that one more time.
Were you able with the scope clause to operate the 175 at full capacity?
Yeah, I mean, our 175s are pretty much operating 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. All day, every day. The ones that are out of service because they're in maintenance overnight. Mm-hmm. And, we do have outstanding maintenance. Our maintenance bases kind of vary. Obviously, we have Dallas and then in Chicago. We also have Springfield, Missouri. We have Greensville, Spartanburg, and then we have Greensboro. So we do have a bunch of maintenance bases that are outside of our hub system. So
absolutely. Now Andre is also a first officer, and he actually has experience both on the 145 and now the 175 as well. So could you tell us, what do you like about the 145? What do you like about the 175 for potential pilots that are going to be moving into Envoy and figuring out where they want to bid?
Yeah. So the 145 is what I started on up in LaGuardia. Absolutely loved the airplane. It's a blast to fly. It's a pilot's airplane, kind of a point and shoot type of plane. It is a great jet to transition from GA flying into 121. Not a whole lot of automation. Of course, we have autopilot, but we don't have any auto throttles on it. And so it makes for a little bit more attentiveness. And then a little bit more descent planning because, you know, you're the one moving the throttles back rather than the computer.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a blast flying it. It does have shorter flights than the 175. So, you know, out of Chicago, we're doing a lot of Midwest flying. Out of Dallas, we're doing a lot of Texas and Oklahoma and, you know, kind of the South Midwest to, man, keeps doing that. I gotta figure out how to mute that. Let me see if I can, just real quick. Sorry about that. There we go. That should be muted.
Perfect.
Anyway, so the Dallas base for the 145 does a bunch of Texas flying in Nebraska and Oklahoma and Arkansas and things like that. Then the Miami base for the 145 is now closed down. So we operate the 175 out of Miami. 145s are still running through there on different sequences, but we don't have a base there anymore for it. We used to do the Bahamas and some Florida flying with the 145 in Miami, but now we're doing all of that as 175. In addition to adding the 175 to Miami, now we're able to do longer flights across the Gulf, into the Caribbean. So that's been a pretty cool expansion for that base. Now, the 175, of course, is a way more automated aircraft. The best way to explain it is like Boeing and Airbus got together and had a baby. So it's the 145 is a 50 seat or a 44 seat, depending on which configuration it is. 175 is 76 seats. It is more automated. It's a much newer aircraft and its range is much greater. So rather than doing kind of that centralized and local flying in the Midwest and Texas, we're branching out on a single sequence. You can see everything from Dallas to Hilton Head Island out on the East Coast, and then Dallas to Santa Barbara or Long Beach or Eugene, Oregon. We see things as far south as Oaxaca, Mexico. Even further south, there's a couple down there that we do. All those are 3+ hour flights. So you get the extended range on those compared to the 145, which makes for easier days. So you're not doing 5-6 legs a day. You could do 1 or 2 and be done. It also makes when we pick up open time, the legs are longer, so a little bit higher pay on that.
Absolutely. So somebody, let's say, who wants to be based in Chicago, what would give them the best probability that they would get based at O'Hare, the 145 or the 175?
It really depends on, that's a great question. It really depends on the class date at the time. So the way that our class dates work and the base and equipment assignments go is day one of INDOC, you bid on your base and equipment assignment. The options for those vary based on the company's needs, and you don't know what's available until day one, which can be kind of unfortunate for some people that are really hoping for, Miami 175 or Chicago 145, and then it turns out there's only Dallas and Miami available. That being said, currently we have our furloughs back in class right now. And I know their classes are split 80% 175 between Chicago and Miami, and then 20% 145 varied between Dallas and Chicago. So best chance to get the Chicago option is hope it's available in class. And then after that, we have vacancy bids once a quarter. And so especially with the movement that we're about to see in the company is, starting right around August, September, we're going to see vacancies open up like that with the flow starting and different companies hiring. So we'll have spots. And a lot of times by the time by the time we were done with training, we were able to bid out of LaGuardia if we wanted. So that's kind of how that goes.
Awesome. So what is the organizational culture like, and what are the key cultural values at Envoy Air?
Yeah, it depends on who you talk to. But for the organizational culture. For the most part, I've had a great time. On the line side, flying side, great captains. I've always had a blast. You know, we have fun on our overnights. We'll always try and find something to do, whether it's, you know, walk down the street and, you know, find a drink somewhere, or it's go downtown and like in St. Louis, go see the Arch or whatever it is. So I've had a lot of fun with those guys. And then in the on the flight attendant side, I've had great experiences as well. You know, a lot of new people in the industry. So they're eager and excited, and it's been a blast. On the company side, kind of the same thing. I mean, our team in recruitment, led by Liz Bogdan, and then our director, currently temporary director, interim, I should say, Elise, we have a blast as well. There are currently 6 of us in I should say 8 of us in recruitment that are pilots. Our team's led by Liz Bogdan, and we all get along really well. We're having a lot of fun so far. So then the kind of key values that we have, of course, you know, we have safety, diversity, growth, that are kind of our main core values. On the growth side, we're seeing growth proportionally from pre-COVID levels. So we had more aircraft pre-COVID. We parked the 140s. So the actual number of lines is lower, but proportionally, it's right about 90%. We're seeing numbers that are going to go above 100% from 2019. So that's good news. And especially with the new 170s coming in, there's no official word on if we're going to get new or more 170s. But rumor has it is that eventually they're going to come, because they're pretty valuable to us.
Absolutely. So what kind of extra opportunities does Envoy offer your pilot groups?
Yeah, there's plenty. So you can get involved on either side or both of the union and the company. So for example, myself, I got involved in recruitment 3 months after I hit the line. We're open to bringing on new people, and that's just one option. Staying on the company side, the chief pilot's office has plenty of opportunities. I know a lot of people have families and they want to work from home, or they want to, you know, work in base, and they don't necessarily want to be gone every night. So there are a lot of opportunities in the chief pilot's office where you can work in the office and be home, you know, every day. You do a, you know, Monday to Friday kind of gig. Mm-hmm. Then on the union side, there's plenty of places to get involved. We have a pilot mentorship program for people in training. So day 1 of training, you get assigned a pilot mentor. They are great resources for anything that you may need, just because they know the whole system so well. Then we have union reps who are per base. So they have a first officer rep and a captain rep for Dallas, Chicago, and Miami. Mm-hmm. And then we have that's the MEC, and then we have the LEC chairman. Those are all voted positions. So we have those opportunities. And then of course we have, let's see, you know, other opportunities, I guess you could say, specifically are, we do have the flow to American, which is a great opportunity. And American has plenty of stuff to get involved in between the union, the company, volunteering, some outreach, things like that. As well as opportunities, we get American travel benefits and discounts for hundreds of different companies on different products. I know Bose has a pretty good deal with us where we can get some good discounted stuff. So those are just other opportunities I wanted to touch on, because a lot of people tend to forget them, and it'll save you some money.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds great. I'll take a Bose A20.
Yeah, that's right. That's the only thing that's not on the Bose discount.
Oh man, of course. So at what point could an individual, if they're interested with Envoy, begin the application process, and how about hire?
Yeah, so after, specifically for Illinois Aviation Academy, because you guys are a partner school, after they get their private pilot's license, they are eligible to apply. At that point, we would bring them in for an HR interview, not a technical. So it would just be kind of get to know us, personality kind of, test there. Assuming successful completion of that, that's when they would become what's called an HR cadet. An HR cadet provides really mentorship. So any questions they might have, any outreach they need, or advice they may need, they'll have the tools of all of us recruiters when we're there as well as when we're not. Then when you get your commercial multi, you can apply. If you're not already an HR cadet, you can apply. If you are already HR cadet, you don't need to reapply and do your technical interview. At that point, you would become a senior cadet instructor. So you need your commercial multi and planning on getting your CFI, and then of course working at the partner school. Once you're a cadet instructor, that's when you'll get onboarded on the company. So your paychecks will be coming from us. You'll have travel benefits with us, and you'll start building company seniority. So you'll be building sick time and vacation time, which is a huge benefit. Believe me, I wasn't a cadet. And then also for the people that are there that are approaching 26 and maybe about to hop off their parents' insurance, we provide, at that point, you get all the benefits of Americans' health, dental, and vision. So that's another huge step for a lot of people that I'm familiar with. They love the insurance part.
Absolutely, yeah.
So then once they complete their hours as a cadet, they come to class. Another big benefit of it is when they're in class, day one, like I mentioned earlier, you're bidding on your aircraft and your base. Cadets get first priority. So they'll bid first, and cadet seniority is how we decide who bids first out of the cadets. So the person who's been there the longest is going to take their first pick, and it'll go all the way down. Then it goes into military and previous 121, and then it just goes by age after that. I know I was the youngest in class and not a cadet, so I was the last spot. That's why I got New York.
Yeah. So that cadet program really, I mean, that'll give you, if you get in right before your CFI or start instructing, that's an extra 2 years of, seniority, about year and a half, 2 years. That is going to be very valuable once you get to training.
That's exactly right.
That's awesome. So once hired on, what does the training footprint look like for Envoy, and what is provided?
Yeah, so the training footprint, it's a 6 to 8 week program. It's AQP, which is Advanced Qualification Process. So it does involve taking a check ride, but it's a little bit different. So week one, you start INDOC. Day one, you're going to bid on your base and plane. And then for the rest of INDOC, you're reading FM1. It is the most boring week of training. It's just death by PowerPoint, and you're reading through the entire, it's FOM now, sorry, our Flight Operations Manual, which is basically our FARs. It's boring, but it's important because we gotta know it. Then you go home for a week and you do self-study on CBTs, computer-based trainers. This is where you're gonna learn systems. So it has maybe, let's call it 500 slides of all the different systems. And it's pretty beneficial because it'll give you a good idea of what you're about to come into for the next week. You come in the next week, you're going to do emergency procedure training. So this is where we go over security training as well as emergency equipment. We learn how to open the door, close the door. We learn how to not blow the slides off the airplane when we're opening and closing. And I think you put out a fire as well, which is kind of fun. And then, so after that, you're going to go into systems. Systems is ground school, really. So it's 2 weeks of learning every system on the aircraft, everything from avionics, electronics, the electrical system, to hydraulics, to the ELT, the whole aircraft, the potable water system. You're going to learn everything about that. After that, you're going to go into what's called VPTs, which is another another cockpit. It's a virtual procedure trainer. Some people call it CPTs, which are computer procedure trainers. Basically, what those are is a mock-up of the cockpit, but it's all touch screens, so there's no actual buttons. This is where you're going to learn your flows. Flows are pretty much the base of how we operate. Rather than having everything on a checklist, we all learn the flows, and then the checklist verifies that we've done everything that's the most important. So VPTs last about 1 week. At the end of that week, you're ready for sims. So you're ready to go actually touch the real airplane. We have our simulators in Dallas, St. Louis, and Charlotte. Sims are pretty fun. I remember in initial training it's the most fun part. You're finally getting to fly. Yep. The way sims work is you're going to get 8 simulator sessions. At the end of it, you do what's called a maneuvers validation, which is, I'm sorry. You know what? Right before you go to sims, you do your check ride oral. This is called your systems validation and procedures validation. Then you go to sims. At the end of sims, you're going to do your maneuvers validation, which is going to be all of your, really all your maneuvers, single engine, V1 cuts, stalls, steep turns, everything like that. You're going to prove that you can do. Then the day after that is when you go into LOE, LOE. That's line operation evaluation. That's technically your check ride. That's the final exam before you go fly the real airplane. And it's just 2 legs. It's an out and back from a hub in the sim. And it typically has 1 failure. So you could have a pack failure, or you could have a high oil pressure or temperature. You could have an engine failure. And they just want to see that the crew, the captain, and yourself are going to be able to deal with it. After that's done, you go home, you wait for a call from crew scheduling and training to go do IOE. This is going to be the first time you fly the airplane. A lot of people are surprised by the fact that the first time you fly the airplane, you have 76 people behind you. But we have great training captains. They're check airmen. They do 25 hours of IOE with you, and then sign you off, and you're ready to hit the line. At that point, would be a reserve pilot. So that's kind of how it all works. It's about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on what time of the year it falls in. So if it falls over the holidays, it can be a little longer because the training department takes the holidays off. So,
Absolutely. So what benefits, I know you hit on some of these earlier, but what benefits does Envoy provide? So you mentioned, healthcare, 401ks. If you want to just reiterate and retouch on those points.
Yeah. So the biggest benefit that we have is that we have travel benefits on American as American Airlines employees. So we don't fall short of anyone at American, which means that a cadet with Envoy, a senior cadet instructor, has the same travel privileges as a 777 captain who's been at American for 35 years. As it all goes by check-in time. So if you check in at 23 hours and 59 minutes prior to your aircraft's departure, and the 777 captain checks in at 23 hours and 58 minutes, you're going to be ahead of him on the standby list, which is pretty beneficial. Of course, it's different with jump seating because you're on your own metal and things like that, but that helps a lot. With the travel benefits, you get 6 D1 passes per year, which are, we call them vacation passes. They're a higher priority on standby. And you get unlimited D2 passes, which are just regular standby. So that's the biggest one. Then, of course, we have health, dental, and vision, all provided. 401k matching. The company does 401k matching. We do 50% up to 7%. So they match about 3.5% if you're investing your whole 7% in there. So it's about 10.5%. I will say it's a lot of people skip out on it, and it's just a terrible idea to skip out on. I know I didn't do it for about 3 months when I first started, and I did the math on it of what I was missing out at retirement, and it was about 50 to 80 grand depending on how the market went. So it's pretty important to put that money in there.
Yeah, it's free money,
What's that?
Free money, you might as
It
well.
is, yeah, it's free money. And then we have competitive industry pay. Right now, we're just about at industry standard for pay for our first officers. At the higher end, for captains, we're also just about standard for industry. And a lot of the time, I mean, people flow at 6, 7 years. So it ends up being about $100 an hour where they're at on the 7-year guys. So that's about
Awesome.
that.
All right. So what are some of the most common deficiencies that you observe or have heard of applicants going through training?
Yeah. For these, the biggest one that I've seen is people try to get ahead of themselves. So they come into training all eager and ready to learn their systems and their flows, and they're trying to learn that while they're going through INDOC and FM or FOM.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is at the end of INDOC week, you're going to take a test on FOM. Well, if you've been studying systems and flows all week, you have no idea what you're doing on the test. So people start to get ahead of themselves and then they hurt themselves by doing that. My biggest advice on that side is just take it day by day. The training system is set up on purpose to get you through in an efficient way if you study what you need to study for that day. Don't go home after day 1 of INDOC and go start studying your flows, because you're going to get all the information that you need. You're going to get your company iPad. You're going to get your mock-up of the cockpit. Just focus on what you learned that day and what you need to learn for tomorrow. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest one. Other than that, our cadets have an incredibly high success rate through our training program. I believe it's about 98.2% completion. And for the most part, that 1.8% that don't complete, it's not because they failed out of training. It's because they had a family emergency or something like that they had to quit for the time being. So really our cadets and more so, not necessarily cadets, but our bigger school providers of pilots, they have a very high success rate. And then even the ones that aren't cadets, it's still about 92%. And that 8% just comes from a variance of things. But for the most part, it's the transition into flying a jet. Things just move faster.
Absolutely. So if you are found deficient or you have to leave training, like you said, for a family emergency, is there a certain time period you have to wait before you can make it back into another class date?
Yeah, it kind of depends on what your situation is. If it's a family emergency, we have FMLA, and the company is pretty willing to work with you on that kind of thing. If you are found deficient in training because you're not studying or you're just not performing as well as we had hoped, we'll work with you for a certain amount of time, and then eventually we'll probably be like, hey, maybe you need to go fly a few hundred more hours, or maybe this place isn't for you. Right. The training footprint is a fast-paced training footprint. How long does it take your students to get from 0 to hero?
So full-time career students can go from private to CFI in 1 year.
Okay, so our training program is designed just about the same way. Our ATP cadets and students, and then you guys and other schools that operate kind of on that 0 to hero real quick, they do well because they've already been through the fast-paced training. They know how to handle that. So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, they're conditioned to it already.
Exactly.
So you mentioned this early in the interview when we were talking about operations. So coming out of COVID, obviously we're not yet to where you were in 2019. I think you said you're about 90% of operations in terms of comparing this year to 2019. When do you expect to see these numbers return to 100% of 2019 or surpass 2019?
Yeah, it's hard to know. All of our routes, of course, we're owned and operated by American. So all of our routes are decided by American Airlines. So it's hard to know exactly what they plan. We find out our line numbers a month in advance to when they actually happen. based on pure speculation, I see us growing through only because American loves us. We operate efficiently. We have a good on time percentage, and we're cheaper for them to operate than other carriers. I don't know when it'll hit 100% or above. And specific, like if you look at specific line numbers, because the 140s are parked, probably not for a while until we get more aircraft. But proportionally compared, the line numbers are already well above what we had before with aircraft numbers. So,
well, that's good to hear. It's good to hear that, you know, the furloughed pilots are going back through the system, and then once they get through, you'll be, you know, looking for more pilots, hopefully by the end of this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's important to touch on because, you know, our furloughed pilots are in class right now. The last class of furloughed pilots that didn't take a leave of absence will be back mid-July. And after that, we're filling classes with cadets. So new hires. So August 1st, we're hitting the road running. We'll have full cadet classes for about 3 or 4 months. We have about 120, 130 cadets that are ready to go. And after that, street hires. So we're at full force recruitment right now. I mean, we're bringing people in for interviews every week. We have about 16 interviews, spots a week, and looking to increase that to 20, 25 spots per week. So to your guys listening, apply, because we're bringing them in. If your guys are your CFIs and your commercial students who are looking to be a CFI with you, apply, because we have cadet spots, we have first officer positions ready. The new hire first officer positions that are not cadets are expected to start mid-fall.
Good to know. That's awesome. Something to look forward to. So what type of support, or does Envoy support have any support for youth involvement in aviation?
Yeah, so for our youth involvement, our biggest support in youth involvement is our support for diversity groups, which in turn does support a lot of our high school development, and even younger than that. Between OBAP, NGPA, Asian Pilots Association, I know this year we donated $5,000 to OBAP in support of their ACE Academy, which is a high school operation. In addition to that, annually, we charter and fly one of our 175s down to Houston to bring high school students down to the NASA headquarters, high school STEM students down to the NASA headquarters. So that's another thing that we do. But other than that, it's a lot of on the diversity group side. We're supporting their initiative to bring younger kids into their program so they can in turn come to us. And we have great relationships with all of the diversity programs. So
that's awesome. Good to hear. Yeah, we're familiar. We've had ACE camps here over the summer many times.
Good. Yeah.
Yep. So it's a blast. All right. So you've been through, everything. You've been there. You've done that. You've made it through. You're a first officer now at Envoy. So speaking to someone who, let's say, a new pilot getting started in aviation here at the Academy, what advice would you give them who's seeking to make a successful career in aviation?
Yeah, so the advice I would give is learn and absorb as much as you can, starting early. Watch those like crazy YouTube videos of big airplanes landing or the crash investigations. Watch all those. Because eventually you're going to have to know them. We learn all the crash investigations at ATP, CTP class. And so it just makes it a little bit easier if you're, starting that process early and learning and investing yourself in it. Be a hangar rat. Go hang out at people's hangars. Go spit shine airplanes. Go mop the floors at hangars. You will get opportunities to go fly some pretty cool airplanes if you go do that. And people love to see that. We love to see that if we can get, on a resume or on their application, and we see that they've been volunteering at some museum or somebody's hangar that they are operating, I don't know what any airplane out of. We love that because they're involved in aviation, and it's their vocation rather than just a moneymaker.
Mhm.
So to your students and your instructors, the training you're currently going through, like I mentioned earlier, is preparing you for our training process. It's fast paced. It's kind of a fire hose, and you're expected to learn it, study it, get that rote memorization done, probably get it to a correlation level, and then go apply it out on the line. Once you have that, you're there. Then my last piece of advice would be network. Everything in aviation is networking. The more people you know, the more successful you'll be. We have a ton of people that go to American Airlines before the flow because they have letters of reference from 2 chief pilots or 4 check airmen or Doug Parker himself, whatever it is. That's our CEO, for those of you that don't know. They get letters of reference from these guys because they got to know them. They commuted with them. They ran into them and they recognized them and they introduced themselves. Get involved in things like recruitment or the union or the chief pilot's office. Anything that you can do that's going to put your face in front of somebody who can give you an opportunity is going to help your career immensely. And not even just at American. We have plenty of guys that are going to Delta and United and Alaska and Southwest because they commute on those airlines and they ran into their chief pilot or they ran into the director of maintenance or whoever it may be that can get your resume just one step higher than it was before. So networking is everything. I know I got the job as a recruiter because I went up and introduced myself at Oshkosh 2 years ago. And I just said, hey, I'm here if you guys need me. And then didn't hear anything. And then 3 months later, I get a call and asked if I could be in Columbus, Ohio the day after that. So you just never know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great bits of advice there. So finally, before you leave us, where can individuals go to learn more about Envoy and start the application process?
Yeah, so the application process and everything you need to know about it is on our website, envoyair.com. Everything you need to know about the company is on envoyair.com. And then if you want to start the application process, you just put /careers. You click on pilots on there, and it'll take you directly to airline apps. Fill out airline apps, send it in. You'll probably mess something up, which is very common, and we'll send it back, and then we'll just have there's a gap in your timeline or something like that. Easy fixes. And then as soon as we get you processed on that application, which currently on our applications, we have about 1,300 of them to go through with 8 of us. So we are a little bit backed up. But I still would recommend putting your application in because as soon as we can get that, and our cadets do, if we see a cadet pop up in there, we'll process them because we need them on, sooner than later, really. So yeah, get on airline apps and send that application in, and then if you want, send an email to us and just say, hey, I put my application in. Great, now I see your name. I'll pull your application right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Andre. Well, we thoroughly appreciated your time. Thank you for, taking the time and sharing with us about Envoy and your experiences with Envoy. And, hopefully we could do this sometime in the near future. You can come out and visit the academy and yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see your place. And I'm glad we could do this too. And if anyone needs anything, feel free to reach out. Logan has my contact information. So you can ask him and feel free to text, call, email, whatever it is.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. For everybody else, thank you for joining us. As always, we'll see you next time and have a good evening.
All right. See you, Logan.
See you, Andre.